Good morning. Are y'all awake this morning? The coffee's great. It's great to be here. It's a beautiful day. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing our first instructor for a summary of water system challenges facing Louisiana, Mr. Mike Battle. Mike has been with the LLA for more than 28 years, including 14 years in local government services. During the first part of his career, he conducted performance audits of state agencies. Mike now serves as Advisory Services Senior Manager, where he works to provide fiscal and programmatic advice to locally elected officials and their staffs. Mike also serves as LLA Fiscal Notes Coordinator during legislative sessions since 1999 and has served as staff to Fiscal Review Committee and the SAVE Task Force. Mike is a certified internal auditor, certified government auditing professional, and is certified in risk management assurance. Please welcome Mr. Mike Battle.
Thank you. Okay, everybody can hear okay? This good? Okay. When I do these CLGE classes, I always like to say that I really think the program is a great program. Everyone I've been to, I actually learn stuff when I go there. And sit in on the classes, even if I'm presenting or whatever. And I always say that the instructors really do care if you're succeeding or not. When we get news in the legislative auditor's office that people out in local government and state government are doing well, we are very happy about that. But I always talk about that. But this today, I'm really excited about the people that are going to be talking today. This panel with Rural Water Association and Department of Health and Auditor representatives in our office. Today, we're going to give you some really good information that I think you're going to be able to take back and start using immediately. And that's what good training is. It's simple, concise, it's from the trenches, and you can start using it immediately. And I think that's what today is going to be. I want to thank them all for coming, and I'm excited to hear what they have to say. I've read through the slides, of course, but I want to hear them talk, and I know I'm going to learn a lot. Mike Wagasback, our boss, my boss, he likes us to be a trusted advisor to local government. He likes us to get out there and give advice and information and be the one that tells you the truth no matter what, how difficult it may be, no matter what, and that you can rely on and call us. No stupid questions with us. If we can't answer your questions, we're going to help you find the answer. But I think these folks as well on the panel, I believe they're trusted advisors as well. I've worked with the people that will be talking today, and I know that they have really good intentions, and they want you to succeed, and they really know their stuff, and day to day, in the trenches, these are the kind of folks. So I wanted to set the tone or the stage for them to get more in the trenches about what we're facing out there, our challenges and our resolutions with the management of water systems municipally, locally, from a government perspective. I wanted to first talk about the Solutions to Achieve Viability and Efficiency Task Force, known as SAVE. This task force came about by a Senate concurrent resolution that was done by Senator Bernard, who has left. He came to visit me the other day, and we talked about it, but he has gone on to be with his grandchildren and not the Senate anymore. But he proposed that and got it passed, and at first it dealt with emphasis on dissolving and absorbing troubled municipalities and other entities dissolving and absorbing them into a higher level of government. As it moved through the legislative process, more stakeholders came to the table and said, we want it to encompass more. We don't want it to just focus on that. Yeah, it might need to focus on that as well, but we want it to focus on more. More and more people started adding their names to the list to want to get involved with this task force, which, the resolution was passed and the task force came to be. But you can see this list here of all the folks that are on it. A lot of people wanted to be involved, so they thought it was important because the SAVE task force became a task force that was looking at overall problems in local government and solutions that might be out there that they could put in a recommendation form in a report and certain legislators could pick it up and run with it. So we got designees from the president of the Senate. We had the municipal chairman, the chairman for Senate and House municipal committees. Even the AFL-CIO got involved. They wanted to be on their school board. Of course, Legislative Auditor's Office. And then we had a working group that we put together because instead of having a bunch of big meetings all the time, we could have our big meetings, get our general testimony, and then we could get this working group together that would put a report together highlighting the deficiencies out there and problems, challenges, and ways to legislatively correct them or address them. So we put that working group together, LLA, Government Finance Officers Association, Department of Health, DEQ, Auditor, Rural Water Association, folks were involved. So we had a lot of people that helped get a report together that we got to the Senate on time, September 6th, and the Pointer Library, and it has been disseminated to the legislature. And there is legislative interest in recommendations, but I just wanted to give you an idea of the task force and what we found and some of the recommendations we're putting out there. First meeting was August 30th, 2023. You can see Senator Bernard up there. You can see some LMA representatives in the first row. And it was kind of a general agenda just to start it off. But we did have some testimony from our office and others that laid out some challenges, which happened to drive the subsequent meetings. So October 27th, you can see that agenda that it kind of turns to the discussion of water. LDH talked about it. DEQ talked about sewer. Auditor talked about challenges and funding opportunities out there. And a lot was discussed there, okay? And then our next meeting, by that time, Senator Bernard had left, and Rick Allen, Mayor Rick Allen of Leesville, became the chairman, and Mike Wagaspak became the vice chairman. I actually kind of talked him into that, and but he wound up as vice chairman. And we still, you can see, we still talked about water and sewer. So it was on everybody's top of their list. It was a big talking point. Okay. We had a fiscal administrator also in that meeting come in, former fiscal administrator. He came in and gave us some ideas about the challenges out there that governments face and resolutions out there. So you can imagine the testimony was voluminous when you're dealing with over 300 municipalities, and they're varied in size and culture and economics and things like that. And there's a bunch of essential services that are provided by these government entities, as we all know. So we had a lot of testimony. And we took all that testimony, and the working group sifted through that for months and months and months and produced a report with recommendations. And we got it down to about 20 pages and got it to the Senate. But when it first came to us, it was 40 pages full of a lot of problems and recommendations. So we included the ones we thought that had a higher propensity to be picked up legislatively, moved forward, and change made. Okay. So I bring up the task force because the things that they found and the working group found and reported and also offered recommendations on had a lot to do with water and sewer and general management out there of municipal government, which, if that's not working, leads into problems with water and sewer and that type of thing. What they found was overall challenges identified with the water and sewer management inefficiencies, financial instability, aging infrastructure, operator shortages. I think a lot of those are probably everybody knows, but I was kind of surprised by the operator shortage and getting into that. That was something I really didn't know. Overall municipal management, we're going to break these down a little bit more, but I'm just giving you generally what the report produced, the task force produced and what they reported on. Overall municipal management problems, which can lead into problems with everything you produce, including water and sewer and everything you control. Ineffective decision-making and oversight processes out there, interpersonal conflicts between people that are managing, administration transition problems. We see that a lot. Challenges in hiring and retaining qualified employees, technology issues, and then financial strains due to a myriad of things you can see there. Insufficient revenues, of course, we're all plagued with untapped grants, unfunded mandates, and poor socioeconomic conditions. We had our economists testified in the task force about people leaving rural areas and its impact on local government and the state. And we all know, we hear that people are leaving, and that has financial consequences. The major recommendations, which we'll also kind of break down a little bit more later, for the water and the sewer was to, of course, when we got together as a working group, there were a lot of thoughts on how this could be done, how it could be fixed. And one of our pie in the sky recommendations, we thought that, God, this would be great if we could do this, I just don't know if it's going to get any attention, was establishment of an Office of Local Government Assistance that has CFOs and CEOs and CAOs on the go, water operators on the go, people who can come in and really help out local government by doing functions for them, setting them up, and then going on to other places. It has gotten some attention, legislative attention already. I'll just tell you that. Of course, one of them was implement management training programs, and I think that's a very important thing that we have to do. Incentivize best practices and regional collaboration. Incentives. I talked to a senator a couple of weeks ago who was saying, how can we incentivize governments to do different things? And actually, that's part of what we talk about in the SAVE task force, but coming up with incentive best practices and regional collaboration. If you incentivize people to do this, maybe they'll change. But we'll talk about it in depth a little bit more. And address operator shortages through labor pipeline development and additional compensation strategies, hooking up operators with jobs that are requesting their assistance where they're really needed. So the major recommendations for municipal management, you hear from the report, implement training programs. Again, that's kind of a common theme. Introduce performance-based incentives for good government. Of course, how we do that, that's another question. Implement conflict resolution training and facilitated workshop with officials or for officials. Develop structured transition plans for changing administrations, which we see problems with that from one administration to the next. Create state-supported recruitment and retention programs. Prioritize technology upgrades. Study and address impacts of sales tax exemptions and unfunded mandates. There's talk of getting together some type of study committee to do that. And establish revitalization grants and population retention strategies. There was a lot of talk kind of out of the box strategies on how to do that. But these are what the recommendations that the task force came up with. Now, getting more detailed into what we just went over with the water and the sewer systems. And we're just talking about the SAVE report, of course, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what we see as advisors from the trenches, I guess, in a bit. But just to kind of break it down, what was reported, says elected officials are not always adequately equipped to address funding, staffing, and infrastructure management issues for water and sewer systems. That's complex stuff that's going on out there. I mean, when I talk to Rusty and them and Amanda about something, it goes over my head. And I know it goes over some heads out there in the field. It's hard to do, and sometimes we don't always have the proper tools out there to do it. When we don't have this, what the task force reported is that it results in inadequate supervision and oversight, inefficient and effective resource use, poorly designed processes for billing and collections, and that's a real problem with utilities when you're not billing right and collecting right. Challenges, you can see there on the side, challenges in accessing federal and state funding. And the biggest thing there is the reactionary movement instead of dealing with things in a proactive manner. that came up time and time again. It seems to be reactionary out there, but I can understand because there's a lot going on, and there's things that fires we have to put out, and one thing gets neglected, and then before you know it, there's a problem, and we're jumping on it to solve it, right? So that came up. Of course, financial stability. Some municipalities don't review their rates and raise their rates appropriately to cover a cost. Sometimes that's political pressure on you, and that becomes a real problem. If you don't have the revenue to cover your operational costs, big problem. And that's what was reported. If we're not, putting away money and we don't have reserves and that type of thing, and we have situations that occur, disasters or big problems or whatever it may be, it really makes the problem worse. So all of these issues, what was reported, can result in the deferral of necessary infrastructure maintenance and improvements, and can lead to higher system costs due to infrequent emergency repairs and unplanned replacements, further straining municipal resources. So if we're not dealing with daily costs, and we're not covering those daily costs, and we don't have reserves, and we're just not tending to the business of keeping the water systems and sewer systems going like they should, it's going to catch up with us. And I think that's what the report was saying. Aging infrastructure is what they brought up. According to the American Society of Civil Engineers 2017 infrastructure report card, more than 58% of our water systems are more than 50 years old. So we're dealing with some aging infrastructure out there. We have seen numbers fly around. If you brought all the public and private water systems up to code, what would that be? And it's like $7 to $9 billion to do that. So we're not dealing with small problems, and we're not dealing with things that are inexpensive, right? So aging infrastructure, big problem there. Recommendations that they put forth in the report to address these inefficiencies and financial instability and the aging infrastructure and everything. You can see here again, establish, and this kept coming up, establish the Office of Local Government Assistance, mandate training programs for elected officials. And I will tell you, whenever we say mandate training for elected officials and staff, it is kind of a touchy subject. So if somebody picks up legislation on this and runs with it, it'll be a good thing, but it'll be a lot of discussion at the table. It's said to incentivize the implementation of industry, financial, and operational best practices for municipal water and sewer systems, reward people who are doing good work, incentivize regional collaboration and shared resources. Again, reward them for those who are thinking out of the box and doing those type of things. And study committee, again, those came up, those were recommended. Study the pros and cons related to the use of things like decentralized sewer systems for smaller remote municipalities, and incentivize advanced technologies. And the LIDACOR presentation I read over, there are some cool tools out there that they're using, but reward people who are thinking out of the box, and is there a way to help them financially to implement new strategies like that? So the operator shortages, just to break that down a little bit more, the report had in it that the smaller municipalities are struggling to hire and retain their water operators. And like I said initially, I really didn't understand the severity of it until we got into this SAVE task force. Causes include absence of pipeline to connect qualified operators, like we talk about with jobs, non-competitive compensation, and we'll talk about some of the solutions to that, and difficult working conditions. And like I said, this stuff's complex. When I talk to Rusty and Susan and all of them over at Rural Water Association, some of that stuff, I'm like, wow, I don't know if I could ever understand that, but you know, that's hard to find good people to fill those positions. It says the shortage is expected to worsen over the next 10 years, and this surprised me. Approximately 30 to 50% of Louisiana's operators, approximately 3,700, are expected to reach the age of retirement. So if we got a shortage and 50% of the folks are going, you wow. Okay. So Rusty, and you can pick your microphone up. Would you?
Mr. Mike, the number of 3,700 operators to date. I was talking with Stone Gonzalez here a while back with operator certification. Prior to COVID, the number was closer to 5,500 operators in the state. That's how many have retired or left the industry since 2020.
Wow. And we're kind of having a shortage of CPAs and auditors too in local government. So seems to be a trend. But yeah, so that makes the problem a little worse, doesn't it? Some of the recommendations that the task force put forward to deal with the operator shortages, encourage collaboration between Louisiana Workforce Commission, community and technical colleges, and high schools to explore ways to create those labor pipelines that we were referring to get people that are employable into jobs where they're needed. Provide state-funded supplemental pay for water and sewer operators. That was a little sensitive discussing that. And it doesn't have to be supplemental pay per se. It can be a similar program. But some of these folks are almost like first responders in some very critical situations, and you know, public safety and health and livelihoods depend on them being able to do what they have to do. So that was discussed at length, and it was taken out of the report, put back in, and anyway, it's a possibility. Study innovative strategies for attracting and maintaining sufficient numbers of operators. And that's whenever you see that study innovative strategies, I think the intentions there were to have a study committee established. And look, I know we don't need more study committees, but if we have the right study committees, I'm all for them, right? I thought this was a good task force, and people in the Senate said it's one of the better ones they've seen to come out with, you know, tangible recommendations that can be turned into pieces of legislation and maybe promote improvement and change. The challenges of overall municipal management that were pointed out, I know this is water focused, but I thought we needed to include it and talk about it a little bit, because if you are having problems with overall municipal management, chances are you're having problems with water and sewer and everything else. Okay. What they pointed out with, you know, discussion from members of the task force and working group folks, strained relationships between elected officials in Louisiana can hinder effective and efficient governance and decision making, as we know. Excessive disagreements and conflicts sometimes lead to delays in progress, such as no budgets getting passed, not being passed on time, and it jeopardizes the fiscal health of the municipalities. The underlying causes could be a lack of understanding about legal powers and responsibilities. I know I've heard CLGE talk classes before where it said, you know, you have to not only understand your role and stay within the lines, you have to respect those who are charged with doing other things as well, and not impede that. And that kind of gets to the second bullet: insufficient respect for the legal authority and responsibilities of your other colleagues, right? Personality and political differences just are problems. And we've just got to find a way to make them not problems, because we are in public business. Elected officials and staff, we are managing public business, the people's money, the people's business. Ineffective, untimely communication that fosters distrust between elected officials. I always say, if you tell people the truth and you're totally open and transparent, those relationships will change if they trust what you're saying, even though it's hard to hear. If they trust what you're saying, it will be better. So those are some of the things they pointed out. And what did they recommend? I'm not including everything. I'm including the high points from this report. But they said that you can see this bullet. It kind of is an indication of how sensitive it is when you start talking about requiring training for people. This is like kind of word for word. Create or designate a group of stakeholders charged with proposing legislation for mandatory training for relevant elected officials that meet certain criteria indicating that the municipality is experiencing interpersonal challenges that may be impacting the effectiveness of municipal management. In other words, they're not saying, I want a bill that goes out there and says these things are required for these types of situations. They want a study of it because there's a lot of discussion around what is mandated and what is not and who it is mandated for. Okay. I think it's needed. I think mandatory training in certain areas is needed. And I hope that something comes out of it. Encourage municipalities to hold regular facilitated workshops focused on team building and collaborative decision making. And that could be in a bill that also addresses necessary training. But what they're getting at is the SAVE task force members and the working group in the report is getting at, we have got to work together or we're going to have problems with what we're producing. Okay. Administrative transitions. I will say I've seen problems with that. Some of them are intentional, and I think some of them are just unintentional because that's a lot when you're changing office to office, administration to administration. And some municipalities are having problems with it, and it causes problems. I mean, computer files, where are they? Where are the hard files? Where are the keys? You know, this, that, and the other. The underlying causes the report had of these issues include conflicts between outgoing and incoming administrations and a lack of knowledge, experience, and preparation needed to effectively and efficiently transition. So what could we do to help this? Encourage newly elected officials and current elected officials to jointly develop and implement detailed transition plans for the incoming administration. That would be very helpful, and to do it together, right? Encouragement the municipalities to hold structured transition meetings between incoming and outgoing officials. As difficult as that may be, if you're a manager of the people's business, you do it for the people, right? So we could have some legislation that encourage that or set up parameters to help that along, and encourage the development of training on transition management. It could be made available to newly elected officials before they even come in. So I think some training is needed on that. Even a checklist type thing or training of, here are the things to think about when someone's coming in, you're leaving, and what you have to do. Okay. Challenges in hiring and retaining qualified employees, just overall from municipal management. That's okay. I thought you were asking me a question. Excuse me. I have a little throat problem today. So challenges in hiring and retaining qualified employees for overall government, not just, water and sewer. Employees do not always have necessary training, skills, and tools to perform their jobs effectively and efficiently. That can get expensive, and sometimes it's just hard to provide that to our folks. Municipalities sometimes lose trained employees to other organizations. How many times you hear of somebody so great and somebody else snatches them up, or some private company or whatever? Underlying causes include of keeping folks, really, and I guess retaining them, but constant public interaction. That ain't easy. This is not an easy job. Anybody I talk to who says, oh, they're just sitting over there doing nothing, I'm like, when's the last time you've gone to a city or a town or a village and see what they're faced with every day? It is not easy. And it's an honorable job. People have entrusted you with a lot, and that's not easy, being on your shoulders all the time. You have responsibility over complex government operations. Water and sewer, like I said, sometimes it's so over my head. I know folks have trouble with that out there. Low compensation, due to inadequate funding and budgets, negative public perception of government employees and the compensation, lack of knowledge and prioritization of elected officials to really focus in on how do we retain, how do we recruit, how do we get good people. So a lot of times we're not looking at that, but we are a public business. I went and got my master's in public administration, and it was in the College of Business, and it focused only on public business, the people's business. And so we are we're running a business. So we got to focus on our people like that to keep good people. Recommendations the report had, encourage training again for elected officials and staff, best practices out there in human resources and human resources management. We don't have to be experts, but have a good idea of what keeps people, what attracts people, those kind of things. Establish state-supported programs to assist municipalities with recruitment and retention efforts. So that would be good if we could have that maybe in collaboration with universities and those type of things. Provide state funding for the rollout of local public awareness campaigns to improve the perception of government employees in public service careers. I see more and more of those, like for the sheriff's office and those type of things that are coming out. But maybe we could do it for local government in general, even water operators and that type of thing. And again, study innovative recruitment, hiring, and retention strategies. And I think that would be edging more towards some type of study committee. But maybe we put together, I don't know, as this goes through, some type of study committee that looks at all of these recommendations and produces specific ideas for legislation, that type of thing. So again, that report, all the recommendations would have to be picked up by a particular legislator to run with it and get a bill passed that would address this for the most part. And like I said, it's getting attention now. The Office of Local Government Assistance that I thought would never get any attention is, and other things in the report. So now all of that kind of lays out the groundwork, I think, for you can see the challenges and maybe the solutions and things that our panel will talk about more in depth from their perspective. But just a little listing of what, as an advisor, talking to advisors every day that are out in the field, because in advisory services, we're going to local governments, talking with local governments every day about problems and solutions. And we see a lot of things going on out there. So I thought about doing a top 10 list of challenges I see out there with water and solutions. But I just said, you know what, I'm gonna just start writing this down. And here it is for what it's worth. What we're seeing out there, and I think what probably you don't need to see out there, is no policies and procedures to guide operations, or they're outdated, or they're incomplete, or one part's over here and one part's over there, and we don't really have a complete blueprint that's driving our success and guiding our success. Political infighting that diverts energy and money away from properly caring for water systems, infrastructure, and high quality operations in any area. Okay, so I wish I could wave a magic wand and make that go away, because when that goes away, a lot starts working better. Financial data not maintained, or it's not easily accessible, and it's not presented to the board. And maybe if the financial information that you're pulling together and presenting to the board on a monthly basis is presented, it's not really talked about and used. I mean, and the thing about it is, when you present financials, it's nothing to be embarrassed about. I've heard people say, well, we don't want to talk about that because make it look like we did this or we did that. No, just present it. Talk about this is where we are and how are we going to fix it. And here's my ideas on how to fix it. So we're seeing that that's not happening. Okay, so maybe they don't have financial data you can use, can't get to it easily. And when you can and you're producing it, you're not really using it. You got to discuss it. A deficit that's not discussed is a terrible thing. A deficit that's discussed ain't so bad if you discuss it and move towards fixing it. But you got to do that. Management and board are just not aware of the financial condition at all. You know, if you ask somebody, you know, what's your revenue per year? And they take 2 days to get back to you. That's not good. Not just because of me asking, but when you're in an emergency situation and someone says, do we have enough money to house these people due to this circumstance or fix this product due to this circumstance, and you don't know, then you have a problem with management, right? And we're seeing that out there. Not creating, monitoring, discussing, amending, and using a budget to drive good public business. I know some people may just do the budget, then it's there, and it's kind of like a bookend. But no, just like financial statements and financial information, you have to use it. It's a tool. Finding findings and recommendations from the audits. A finding is just an area for improvement, and a recommendation is a blueprint for success. Audit findings and recommendations where you feel embarrassed or ashamed of it and you don't talk about it, bad. Audit findings and recommendations that you address, very good business process. Very simple. And no stupid questions involved with that, and nothing to be ashamed of. You got to use it, but we see folks not doing that. And not asking questions when they don't understand. You got to ask questions of your auditors and others when you don't understand. Aging infrastructure, but no plans on how to fix and maintain water and sewer systems. There's just no plan for it. And spending money on other items, other items that may be of political nature or whatever, but you're not prioritizing fixing those systems is what we're seeing out there. Utility fund is propping up the general fund while infrastructure suffers. And if you haven't read Act 98 of 2021 and Act 144 of 2024, those provide some restrictions on water and sewer spending, and parameters. So you need to be aware of those. And if you have any questions, you can always call us at the office because we've been dealing with those. No cutoff policy are not employing it consistently. One person doesn't get cut off. This person does. You know, you got to employ it consistently. In Article 7, Section 14, donation of public funds, you don't want to be somebody say, hey, you're kind of donating public funds there because you're not cutting off somebody and they haven't paid you in 2 years. I mean, we see some big balances getting up there. Making billing adjustments without guidance and policy and procedure on how to do so and why to do so and who does it. Not aggressively collecting what is owed to you, and you can use payment plans. Local governments not increasing rates to cover the costs. And some of this is a repeat of what you've heard in the SAVE task force, but this is what we see in the trenches every day. Not aware of all funding opportunities and not aggressively working to obtain available funding. I heard someone at the table once at the legislature say, yes, a legislator asked them if they were going to get this particular available funding or had they gotten it or whatever. And the folks said, no, but we're going to get this other source of funding. And a legislator pushed his button and said, that's over. That's no longer available. And I said, oh gosh. So always be aware of what's out there. And go after it. Okay. I'm getting a weird message here. You coming? Thank God for Lizzie. I don't want to touch it. It's like a cockpit in an airplane up here. I don't want to touch anything. Just want the pilot to land me safely. Okay. Where were we? Okay. So yeah, make sure you know it's available out there. I always would, if I put myself in your shoes, having a person that you give a little time to explore funding opportunities, maybe weekly, to see what's out there. Call folks. So you're going to learn a lot about it today, but call folks that are like these people and us, and research yourself, LMA, Police Jury Association, all those folks. So yeah, there's a lot of challenges. Maybe some of you are sitting here going, yeah, I know everything you just said. I already knew that. But we just wanted to highlight it to set the stage for what we're going to talk about later as well, but also to talk about the strategies for improvement. Are there ways to improve? And yes, there are. Some people feel hopeless out there. We talk to a lot of local governments that just say, I don't know how we're going to turn things around. But so here they are. Here are strategies I think that could help you. Teamwork. Without it, you will fail. Just end of the story. If you are fighting and you're not working together, you're gonna fail sooner or later. I'm very serious about it. And other CLGEs and presentations I've done, I always bring in my friend who won a Super Bowl as a punter, and I asked him, how did his team win it? What was the difference? And he said, teamwork. We trusted each other. We worked with each other. He said, everybody counted us out. We did not have the skills. Everybody was injured. They counted us out. And he told me many, many times that without teamwork, without trusting each other, without helping one another, not tearing each other down, they would have never done it. And that was the thing that did it. So that's a powerful testimony coming from a powerfully successful person. But if you don't have it, and I talk about this all the time, it will get you eventually. If you're fighting and you can't get a second at a meeting to have the meeting, it's going to be trouble. If you're fighting and you can't pass a budget for years, you're going to fail. You've already failed, but it's going to get worse. And there's nothing wrong with failing as long as you identify it and work together to fix it, right? Get strategic and please think through all this stuff. Government is complex and it is a thinking person's game in business. And you have to think through things. It's not easy. And it's an honor to be given the role that you're given, and to take it on is brave, you know? So think through it. It's not easy, and tell people that, you know, if they're saying, oh, it's easy and you're just sitting over there doing nothing, tell them what you do, because it's not easy. And just think through it. All commit to a purpose of fiscal and operational health. That is your main thing when you're managing. Fiscal and operational health, and everything else will flow. When that's all working, then you can build the park, then you can put the lights up, then you can do this, that, and the other. But if you don't have that first, and you're trying to do the park, and you don't know how much money you got in the bank, it's not going to work. Okay. You have to be a effective financial manager, short-term and long-term. You have to consider these things in these monthly meetings. We need good data. We can't have bad data. We need good data that's easily accessible, we can rely on to be able to be good program managers, and use the budget as a tool, and use financial statements and documents as tools, and openly discuss that you planned on something happening and it didn't happen, but now let's openly discuss how we're going to fix it. Once your whole, approach to government becomes more business-like, like, hey, here's where we are. We got to fix it. We're not going to blame people for an hour and a half and have a meeting in chaos. Things start changing, right? Be more proactive instead of reactionary. I think the SAVE task force promoted that as well. I'm cash flowing more problem entities than I want to. I want entities to cash flow themselves and catch problems early. And we're not in a problem where we're cash flowing on the back end and going to committees to discuss it and that kind of thing. Again, provide and discuss good fiscal data on a regular basis, like your balance sheet, your income statement, accounts payable, accounts receivable, and deficits. Look, produce them and discuss them. If you're having problems understanding any of that stuff, then you can call our office and we'll talk you through it on what we think you could present and how you could present it. When there's a need for an expenditure decrease and or a revenue increase, you've got to put, remember, it's a thinking person's game. You got to put the pencil to the paper. I've talked to people before with you got $100,000 deficit. Okay. They said, well, we canceled all cell phones. And I said, okay, well, what, how much was that? Not sure. And I was like, well, okay, maybe it was $15,000 and that leaves us with, now we have to move forward. So just think about that. Remember, take the time, set the time aside, no matter what, to think through these things and be calculated about it. And it'll all start coming together better. Correct your findings in the audit report. Ask your auditor for help. If you're having trouble doing that, call us. We'll walk you through it. But that business tool that you paid good money for, It's your business tool. So you please use it, and please ask the auditors, and please call us. And there are no stupid questions. I once talked to a lady who had a finding for years and years and years, and she said she didn't know what it was because she didn't want to ask the auditor because she didn't want to look stupid. And I was like, there's no stupid questions because I ask the auditors all the time what they mean. Okay? So remember that. No stupid questions. And please use those audits. It's your business tool. You paid for it. Bill timely, establish cutoff policy, and employ it consistently, like we said. Bill timely, establish cutoff policy, employ it consistently, collect what's OT. Payment plans, you can use them, but make sure they are in writing. Include criteria for entering into the payment plan, and the options there are guided by established policy and procedures that you have, okay? Are concise, simple, easy to understand, easy to administer, and comply with the policy. Require payment of the current balance plus the agreed upon reasonable portion of past due, okay? Reasonable. You don't need to extend it out where it takes somebody 15, 20 years, year or two. Or if it gets over that, you're documenting in those payment plans the reason for the extenuating circumstances. But it has to be a calculated process, the payment plans. And make sure you're managing customer deposits and not allowing these accounts to be depleted. You need to keep those there. Create policies and procedures to guide reasonable billing adjustments. Who can adjust? Who will approve? The documentation that's required should be in your policies and procedures, and proper accounting practices related to any adjustments that might be needed. I've gone into places before where it is just a very informal situation, and sometimes it's not even documented to where it was adjusted. Sometimes it's just a signature with no description why. Same place that I saw that, somebody came in that when we were there and was arguing that they were denied one and the other person was granted one, and they wanted to see what the difference was and what the policy was. And that started a whole day or two of talking about that. If you just had it all documented with the policy and procedures, so it said, here you go. Let me know if you have any questions, right? So create policies and procedures to guide anything to having to do with those adjustments. And for that matter, create policies and procedures for all critical operations in your organization. Without them, you're going to have trouble. Folks are not going to know what to do, when to do it, and how to do it consistently. Then when you leave, they're going to have questions, a new administration coming in. And when you have contradictory situations where somebody comes in and says, you're treating me differently, whether they're working for you or outside customer, then the other folks, I want to see what's driving that. And believe me, people come asking for policies and procedures a lot when they get into those situations. So have those. If you need help getting started with good policies and procedures, you can call me and I'm going to give you my contact information. We've helped places do that. They're necessary. So at no extra cost to you, I put the my management checklist. This is one that I put together. I thought to myself, it's easy to for folks to say that government should do this and government should do that. But we as advisors, we've been out there and we know that it's hard. We know that it's not an easy job. But there's a lot of challenges and there's resolutions. So I sat down one day and I was like, if I was in their shoes, what would I need to ask myself on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis to make sure that I was managing properly? And I put this list together. I'm not going to read it word for word, but you can see, some of the questions. Do we have agreed upon short-term and long-term plans for our entity? Can we all agree what our residents need from their leaders? Wow, if we could just get there to start, and then the other things, hit those. Let's just go to number 6. When we push for our agenda items, do we also consider our financial status? Do we ask, can we afford this and what is best for the people? Versus sometimes getting into political arguments and that thing. Are we consistently looking for ways to generate revenue? Are we putting money away so that we can respond to emergencies? critical times, those type of things. Are we making progress fixing our audit findings? Are we talking to the auditors? No stupid questions. Is our performance as a team, a mayor, management, staff, board, council, going to attract business and residents who want to locate to, live in, and contribute to the overall success of the municipality, parish, or state? Big question. A lot of folks will say we can't do anything here because we have no money and people are leaving, but there is an organization that produced a report that says that if you are infighting and in the paper for problems, people are leaving. If you turn that around and it is positive, 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 as much as it can be, I guess, then people will come back, and they're seeing that. Okay, they're studying it, and it's not in mass groves, but this could help. I have this in there for you, and I'm not, you take it for what it's worth, but I think if we ask ourselves these questions on a regular basis and the answer is no, and that we commit to working together and using all the tools around us, including us, to get that answer to yes, I think you will see improvement. And I love it when people call me at the office and say, Mike, I have no idea what this audit finding means, or I have no idea of what information to present in a meeting. My council person asked me this, or my CFO told me that, and I just don't understand, and I need help. I love it. And that's what you need to be doing. And even we get, can you get us together and talk to us? 2 or 3, or maybe even as a group, and we go. You know, Jennifer's gone with our legal and other folks in our office. We go out there and talk to folks to try to make things better. So ask those questions, as a group. If it's no, turn it to yes, but use the people and the tools around you to get it to yes. So coming up next, which is going to be really cool, we're going to have a little break, I think, for about 10 minutes. And we're going to have regulatory issues and solutions for public water systems with Amanda from Department of Health, challenges and solutions for public water systems related to operations and funding with Leslie Durham from Lidacor, and data-driven decisions based on operational and financial record keeping from Rusty Reeves at Rural Water. So very, very good information, and coming from people who are very knowledgeable and practical, because they're dealing with this every day. And here's my contact information. You can get me in the office, or you see my email, and that's also my cell phone. So if you need a call, if you're having an emergency call, I'll try to answer that call immediately. If I can't, I will get back to you. Your call or your email will not go unanswered. I'm not as good as Jennifer Shea and them, but I'm pretty good about it. I'm all right. Okay. We have a break until 9:30, and then of course we'll be here on the panel for questions and that type of stuff, or in the break. So I hope it helped. So thank you.